Alright, I'm here. Hello, it's me. I'm gonna be playing a Case of Distrust by Ben Warder. Ben Warner? It's by Ben. Ben Wander. Spooky. I need my glasses for this. Gotta feel like a detective. A Case of Distrust. Save. Hey! Good to see you, Johnny. Welcome to my stream. I'm just suffering from the horrible COVID infection. Yeah, and I'm really happy to be kind of streaming now, too. I am enjoying giving you a little bit of a taste of the games that I've been playing as well, so you're not just listening only to my words, you get to see a little bit of them, too. Alright, though, we got our settings squared away, so we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it. I love the jazz already. I woke in my desk chair. Across from me were his piercing amber eyes. They surprised me at first, but I should have known he'd be there. I stretched and said mid-yawn, "Not very nice to sneak into a sleeping woman's apartment," but his stare just continued. I laughed at his glare. I'd seen San Francisco's shrewd things. Hardened cops and deadly politicians, but none could ever match that gaze. Also, IDK, if it's a joke in your bio, but you do have the Ford Monday is not correct. I'll have to fix that. I'm not gonna do it right now, though. I think it is, but this month it's not, because if it was the second Monday, then it would have been, yes, like last Monday, because that was our second Monday. Thank you, I appreciate it. I was just confused because this month is so fucked up, because we ended up having our Friday be on like the second week rather than the first week. I laughed at his glare. Whatever, I laughed at his glare. I knew I didn't have what he wanted. Reaching into my coat, I took out my knife and flicked it open. I gave him the knife, or I held the knife steady. I think I'm gonna hold the knife steady. Hello, Go Queen! What? You have a Discord, what is this? I know that you were spamming our other friend. It's nice that we have Clean here. I'm really glad that you decided to join us again. I'm always there and down to have more free viewers. Held the knife steady while staring back at him. Look, no, I said, nodding towards the desk. That's all there is. Take it or leave it. But a detective knows when she's beat, and I knew then. He wanted to search the place, and that's what he would do. I sighed, knowing my weakness for his type. All right, I said, let's look. He let out a gleeful meow in victory. It was a cat? I cut a piece of my apple that was the cat that the cat had rejected. Always the sore winner, I jabbed. But I was smiling too because I was telling the truth. There was absolutely no other food in my apartment, so I'm literally giving the cat my last piece of food. The cat often dropped by to scavenge. He made a lot of noise when he thought I was holding out on him, but right now the place was empty, no food anywhere. I had to prove it to him. The lamp belonged to my Uncle Lewis. He had been an SFPD officer, one who argued policewomen could be good detectives, even while the others jeered at me. I knew he'd be right, but my current workload didn't help that claim. Yeah, we all gotta promote ourselves, man. I hear that. We're all working on that fucking game. So I can choose to think about Lewis or try not to. Let's think about Lewis. Thought about Lewis more often than I wanted. I was lousy at handling the emotions behind those thoughts. Is that it? Oh, okay. I had taken copies of old murder cases from the... Oh dear. Panel content! My name is David. I do a podcast with the Bundle Bourgeoisie with my pal. I stream the games... Is that just like from my... You're just copy and pasting the thing that I wrote. What are you doing? You're a weirdo. I thought we were actually typing things, but I should know that our friend is just one who copy-pastes. I longed for these types of jobs. The truth was, any work was hard to find for the female detective. Thanks. I kept a small statue underneath the side table. It had been police evidence in a crime, and its owner hadn't wanted it back. I took a shine to it, so I snagged it for myself on my way out of the apartment. I'm gonna turn off my direct monitor. I think I prefer just having one ear. Packaged cigarettes were the latest trend, but I still preferred to roll my own. The ashtray was evidence that it was a practice skill. I suppose I had a lot of free time back then. Also. Come on. Hope that clicking isn't bothering anyone. I just noticed it. I don't know. I'm just gonna not worry about it. Okay, package cigarettes with the latest trend. Whatever. Hey cat, what do you want? The cat waltzed into my apartment a few years earlier. He kept coming back, though there was rarely a morsel to eat. He continued his loud meowing until I proved to him the place was empty of food. I just have to look. Doesn't matter how doe-eyed you are, cutie pie. We got no food anymore, I told him. He licked his chops and looked at me. Apparently, he still didn't believe it. I needed to contradict him somehow, to show him something in the apartment that would prove that my apartment was empty of food. I went back to the apartment to search for more clues. That is my stream. Thank you, Go Klein. A newspaper was flopped on the floor, its headline about the death of Lenin, leader of the Red Menace, sweeping Russia. It seemed the Bolsheviks had lost their head. My old notebook, now filled to the brim. I wrote everything down, even the minor details. Never knew when they might be useful. First half of my old cases. First half details the beats I used to walk in my policewoman days. Of course, policewomen were forbidden for going on patrol, but Lewis often overlooked the rule. You want me to look at the bird? Where's the bird? I already looked at the bird. That's just evidence from an old case. A small statue underneath the side table. It had been police evidence in a crime and its owner hadn't wanted it back. I took a shine to it, so I snagged it for myself on the way out of the department. Is there anything else? What's this? White icebox, tinged yellow with age, the half-blocked kitchen doorway. My income rarely kept much stocked in it, and right now it was empty. Okay. The door to the outside world. If I left now, though, the cat would start wailing so loud I'd get complaints from the neighbors. So he needed convincing before I could leave. I think the icebox is what it would do it, right? It was empty, so I gotta go talk with him. Talk. Contradict. There were no cases just then. The cat was meowing and needed attention. There is nothing. So you won't stop until I can show you there's no food? Well, alright. I had to show him where I kept the food, that it was completely empty. Contradict. Oh, I have to go to evidence? Icebox. Used to contradict. It's a mystery game. I think this is the whole game here. It's kind of like Phoenix Wright in that you have evidence and you have statements, and then you have to disprove the statements with evidence. And this is the tutorial right here, where it's teaching me how to contradict the cat, telling him, hey, I know you're hungry, but my icebox is fucking empty. Hey, I got an achievement. No food here, asshole. Cat looked quizzically at the open door, then back to me. Sorry, fella, there's no grub there for me either. He stared at me with eyes disappointed as I felt. Those big yellows always got to my soul. Thoughts of my family filled my head. My sister I think about all the time. Muriel had sent a letter with an update of her life in Chicago. She left her husband. She and her husband had just purchased a new home outside the bluster of the city. Their 3 young children were looking forward to the move. I'd never told Muriel, but those letters... Yeah, this cat is way cool. Those letters kept me going. Those letters kept me going. Hearing about my family, however remote, helped me cope with the isolation I was feeling. I refused to accept it myself back then, but perhaps Muriel had known anyway. My sister had the ordinary lifestyle that I rejected. I wanted to change the world. To bring justice for victims, especially ones who no longer had a voice. Not that I was helping advance my cause with the typical cases coming my way. Delicious slushy. He wants to change the world, bring justice to victims, especially the ones who no longer have a voice. Not that I was helping advance that cause, or the types of cases coming my way. My mind spiraled the usual series of questions. Had I even impacted the women's movement? Had I made my change to society at all? Was my plotting career worth losing traditional happiness? That's right, because I'm a female detective in like a very early time. What was the point in the life that I had chosen? A loud meow from the cat snapped my thoughts back into the moment. I took a deep breath and grinned back. Guess you can scream now, I said. Nobody's gonna come knocking for food for you, fella. There immediately came banging on the front door. Beyond a nuisance, the cat was psychic too. You order out? I asked him. In the doorway was a regrettably familiar face of Connor Green. I like that the color changed. His company churned my stomach. I looked past him or I stared at him. Either way, I'm uncomfortable with this guy. I'm gonna look past him. Peering left and right into the hallway. I heard a woman's heels marching down the carpeted stairs, but otherwise the building was silent and empty. Evidently, Green had come here alone. He stared at me through the doorway with a coy smile. Well, ain't you gonna invite me inside? Should I close the door on him? What do y'all think? Close the door on this bitch? I'm thinking I'm closing it. This guy's weird. He's got a weird smile. I'm gonna do it. I'm closing it. Stuck out a foot to stop me. Hey now, he chided. Foul way to treat a customer, Malone. So that was his angle, hiring me as a detective. I wonder what a bootlegger would need with a private eye, but he answered without my prompt. I'll make this quick. I can't take it to the hog house, so the pigs would laugh me out, and the other dicks just aren't as tempting. His grin widened. Thought this was gonna be quick, I said, as I started rolling a cigarette. It wasn't quick. I'd already rolled and lighted a second smoke when Green finally finished his story. I noted the important bits in my book. It had started with a letter slipped under the door in a white envelope. The envelope contained a single typewritten leaf, which he had handed to me. It read, "End your game or we'll end you." It had no signature, instead ending with only a small scribble in the bottom right of the corner that had resembled a black hand. Green had a lead on a new rum-running scheme, a connection from Vancouver. He'd given a sample to Tiny Paul, the gangster who ran the Tin Spoon speakeasy for a mob boss, Jerry Fieri. They'd agreed to buy in for more. Green surmised the letter was about his rum running. He suspected Redstone Stable, another bootlegger, of sending the letter. He told me that Stable ran a barber shop during the day and gave me the address. Green needed to know who the threat was from. Blech. He'd get Paul's gang to deal with them and continue his scheme to get rich. If I go snooping myself, he concluded, folks see I'm not trusting people. No trust leads to no customers. I need to play it low-key, which is where you come in. I raised an eyebrow, stared at him through the cigarette smoke. Something in his yarn was still twisted. He must have noticed my reticence because he said, "You know, I work closely with Lewis. I'm sure he'd want to protect me as much as any other victim." Lewis put me on the force. I'd finally accepted Lewis's death. My uncle, I'm just gonna say that. Oh no, I can't say that. I'm still searching for answers. He'd been a man obsessed with helping victims and bringing justice to those beyond salvation. But that ethos had never understood how he had taken his own life. Those thoughts haunted me. I quit the San Francisco Police Department and started my own practice, taking in his philosophy. Was Green worth my time? Would he be worth Lewis's? Green tipped off my uncle in a few cases. I wondered if that was enough to warrant my protection. Before I could think past my headache, he threw a bill in my lap. Keep this C note as a retainer. And don't worry about getting in touch. I'll find you later for a chat. He turned down the hallway and I let him go. If he was willing to give me $100 with no commitment, I wouldn't stop him. I turned back to the apartment, still confused about the whole story. My headache wasn't helping either. Whenever I lacked clarity, a trip to Southern Coffee was usually the cure. A trip to Southern Coffee? How do I get there? Kat, do you know how? Kat doesn't know how. Statements. Oh, interesting. So these are things that I learned from this last interview here with Connor Green. That he got a threatening letter, that he has a bootlegging scheme, and that he suspects Redstone Stable. Another bootlegger. Yo, I like your donger faces. Those are some quality meme faces, Go Klein. I really appreciate you hanging out in chat. A newspaper was flopped on the floor, its headline about the death— oh, I've already read this. How do I get out of here? Oh, it's the door, I bet. I'd mounted a gold plate on the outside that read PC Malone, Private Investigator. There was only one place I needed to go to clear my head— Southern Coffee. It was a basement dive. It wasn't modern, hip, or even busy. And it wasn't my favorite place to go to settle down and paint. It was my favorite place to go down and settle and paint. Especially in the company of the best bartender in the city. I grabbed a taxicab and told the driver where I wanted to go. I thought about talking with him on our way. Let's talk with him. We talked about the weather and not much else. Sometimes taxicab drivers are poor conversation partners. Yeah, that's fair. Southern Coffee was an automat diner. Ethel Burgess, the lone waitress, was friendly to help with any inquiry. Of course, if you winked at her right, she'd show you the way to the downstairs toilet, where Frankie played bathroom attendant. Ooh, my. Southern Coffee had the distinct feeling of home. The familiar smell of mold in that old basement was enough to put a grin on my face. Frankie tended the bar at Southern Coffee. Though it wasn't his place, I'd never caught a whiff of the real owners. They trusted Frankie to do what he did best. I'm definitely not clicking whatever that is. I can definitely hear this clicking still. Shit sucks. Hold on. Oh, is it gone? See if this helps. It's better than before. I said, "Hello, Frankie," and you was met with a smile and a grunt from Franklin Ernest Conway. He was a big fella, a decent pitcher or a fantastic orator. He'd been a decent pitcher. The Seals a few decades earlier. Sometimes he'd speak wistfully of those days, but his arms were much more used to slinging bottles now. I sat at the bar. "You got the spooks, PC?" he asked. "You're worn as a cashier's mitt. I suppose my exhaustion showed. I won $100 for nothing, and I can't let it go." I told Frankie about the case, the threatening letter sent to Connor Green, how he assumed it was related to his bootlegging and his suspicion of Redstone Stable. The story took longer than I'd wanted, Frankie showing genuine interest by asking many questions. When I finished, he threw me the whiskey sour he'd been stirring. I took a large gulp and gave a sigh as thanks. I appreciate more Spam Klein. If it is a nice message, maybe I should check it. You really want me to see it, don't you? It is a PNG, so I guess I'll look. "I love your streams, they are sick." What? No way. No, now I feel bad for saying that I wasn't gonna click on it. Now I feel bad. You're so nice. I love you, Go Klein. You Go Klein! You're cool. The story took longer than I wanted. Well, Green's case is better than most of what you're given, he said with some enthusiasm. At least it's not more of that adultery bunk. Sure, I replied. But I started with a goal in mind. What's the point in helping a man like Green? Frankie clicked his tongue on his teeth. Lawyer or priest, why does it matter? Let me ask you, are the clients you have now the types you want to help? I'm gonna admit that they aren't. I'm gonna be honest. Because this Green guy's kind of weird. I told him that I wanted more from my detecting life. Could be that Green's case shoots your career forward, Malone. I sighed and stared down at my drink. But my daze was interrupted by the basement door opening and slamming shut. A small, blustering woman began marching toward me. She was wearing a light blue cloche hat with a gray ribbon tilted back on her head, a scarf of similar blue draped around her neck, but I was startled by what she wore underneath it, a gray trench coat that looked too large for her frame. It was exactly like the one that had belonged to Lewis. Did she know Lewis, my uncle? Also, I'm gonna see what this next thing is here. Can you play VR chat or Minecraft or stay on this one? I'm gonna stay on this one for a bit, but I'll probably play a little bit of everything at some point. VR chat would be lovely. I want to get like an actual like VR headset before I like hop into that though. I might do a Minecraft stream though at some point. That'd be kind of fun. I don't know that I would do it a whole lot, but just as like a one-off thing. I set my drink down in the bar and looked her in the eyes. I inserted a hello. I'm Phyllis Malone. Oh, I've finally learned my first name, Phyllis. How can I help you? Accompanied by a smile as genuine as I could muster. That knocked her off balance. She stumbled over her next few words, and I added, "And you are?" The flame returned to her eyes. Between clenched teeth, she hissed, "I'm the wife of that bum who sneaks into your bed." I can add you on VR chat, and then you don't need a VR headset to play it. Yeah, I know, I've played it before, but, like, I feel like that game is just better when you have a VR headset. I just want to, like, feel around in the world and just, like, have that sort of experience. I don't know. I don't feel like it's as good. I asked the cat? Your humor wasn't... Yeah, she's not in for jokes and games right now. She launched into another poetic stanza, and he just left your sty this morning, she finally ended. And that was when I gathered she was Connor Green's wife. Mrs. Green, I'm a PI, not a homewrecker. And I don't think your husband, in his line of business, would want to bet a dick anyhow. Her look was pure incredulity. A woman in that line of work? She questioned. I don't believe it. Prove it. How can I prove it? Okay, I gotta look through these. I'd taken copies of old murder cases from the SFAPD when I left. Loved reading through them, even though my contributions were minimal at that time. I longed for those types of jobs. The truth was, any work was hard to find for a female detective. I think that might be it. But I think the statue underneath, it was evidence in a crime. What about the newspaper? Nope, that's not it. Notebook? Filled to the brim. I wrote everything down, even with more details. I think it's got to be the paper stack. Ms. Green, at home I have a giant stack of cases, each one of them a separate crime covering the many cities across the country. I went into great detail with a few of the logs, especially some of the more famous capers. I study them because that's my job. It still took more coaxing for her to believe me, but eventually she came around. She seemed grateful I explained it to her. Apparently she had sent her husband she had seen her husband leave my apartment, and distraught, she had followed me all the way to Frankie's basement and decided to confront me. Suppose I lost my head after what I thought I'd seen, she said, and she began to cry. Frankie, ever chivalrous to a dimpled girl, came around the bar and held her up. Now that's all right, Mrs. Green. Why don't I hail you a cab and send you back home? She agreed, and they walked together up the stairs. When Frankie returned, I said to him, "You turn night real quick." He snorted with a laugh. "Aw, hell, you can't have that siren in here. With a torture yelling like that, every street bugger would have come to her rescue." Blech. I don't know what kind of an accent he would have. Probably like I don't know, is this game British? I think this game is British. Ms. Green is a torch slinger. Well, I learned she was Mrs. Connor Green just now, when she came in here. I'd only seen her as little Fanny, singing lead for the jazz band, the Tin Spoon. She's a singer. The Tin Spoon, I said. Tiny Paul's joint. That's where Green is selling his liquor. Say, you think that's where she met her husband? I laughed. You're a real sleuth, Frankie. He made a sarcastic bow. Yo, thank you for promoting me, boo. I love you, Go Klein. I shook my head. You're telling me you escorted our little torture out just to avoid a bit of hot water? Frankie flushed and said, What are you talking about, Malone? I was never good with emotions, but it was plain that Frankie had instantly fallen for the girl. Yo, thanks for promoting us on our stream. I think that's where people really need to see it. People aren't going to watch the stream if they don't know where it is. So what if I had more to squeeze out of her, I asked. What more could you possibly want from little Fanny? She couldn't have anything to do with Green's mess. Wait, let me read this again. I shook my head. You're telling me to escort. Yeah, this is the contradiction right here. This Green was a singer. Oh, it didn't. I don't see how Miss Green's related to any of this, he concluded. The day before, Green received a typewritten letter that read, "End your game or we'll end you." It was signed with only a small black letter. I think that's it. Is this it? She'd suspected her husband because she... Wait a minute. Why would she suspect infidelity? Frankie rolled his eyes. PC, if you were with Green's wife, would you trust him with anything? I'm sure he's always up to something. I shrugged and stood up from the bar stool. So did I do it? I think I fucked up. I think I probably fucked that one up. I probably didn't learn the information that I needed to learn. What had just happened was quite the ruckus. It seemed like my cue was to move along. Is there anything I can find around here? Frankie had a bond with that old shaker at the end of the bar. I was surprised he hadn't named it. He could sling a mean drink, though he'd only use the good liquor if he liked you. Frankie liked it. Sacramental use only. Frankie said with a spark in his eye. Go ahead, he said. Give it a swig. Fuck it. Sacramental, what does that mean? And swirled some of its contents between my gums. A bit spicy, ain't it? Good, I nodded. It'll cost you too, he said with a smile and grabbed a bottle from me, turning it through his hands. Rabbis charge more than a nickel for this beauty. Only this type of Napa wine is made from that Zinfandel grape. It has a unique aroma. I'd been trying to learn more about wine. It seemed everyone knew their stuff but me. I noted what Frankie had said about the origin of the grape as he sat at the bottle back at the bar. Since when do you know of grapes? Frankie let out a bellied laugh. Some of those grapes are older than you, Malone, and I've known about them since I was a small tot. That's why I'm so good at my job, you know, Frankie sighed. Too bad more folks can't taste them. That woman's league is the devil. What's this? A YouTube video. You son of a bitch. That's Rick Astley. That's straight up Rick Astley. I got Rickrolled. Thing is that I don't have autoplay on, so they definitely didn't hear anything. Too bad more folks can't taste them. That woman's Christian temperance. Aren't you done with the sauce? No. I want to know more about this. The Woman Christian Temperance Union was now under feminist France Willard, a positive force for the suffrage of women. But her staunch support of prohibition, along with the union's massive political clout, irked the very wet San Franciscan public, and she particularly wasn't popular with bartenders. I turned back to Frankie and asked him about notes. What do you know about the singer? I don't think I really got anything for Frankie. Once I'd asked Frankie to lend me some cash from the register, he growled so fierce that I decided not to ask again. I didn't think his employers would notice before I got it back, but maybe he just wanted to save me from myself. Bar stools were crooked and worn. My usual one was in the center of the room. I could sit on it for hours if Frankie had a yarn to spin. Of course, sauce helped keep me in place too. I like that they call it sauce. The worn stairs led me to the outside world. Dear, what's this link? Let's see what this is now. Ooh, Mike Wazowski. That's nice. I like that. About little Fanny. Whatever. Green hired me for a job. Find the guy who wrote the letter. That's the basic part. But you want more? Asked Frankie. I nodded. Green's a shady character. I have to learn about him. Who is this guy? Dig into his past. I can't go back to him blind. And then there's something about his bootlegging. How'd Green get a connection like that? What's his source exactly? Squeezing that lemon might give me more juice. Oh dear, you have more for me, do you? Is it another fun video like that? Nacho, what the fuck is this shit? All of these, you just sending me random shit? That was like a channel that had like 50 views for like every video. Was that just your own personal channel, Clean? I guess you gotta promote. On the job. I was debating where to go next. I think a tin spoon seems like a good place. There's a speakeasy in the North Beach run by Tiny Paul, the gangster that Green had put in with. I'd never been there. The mob keeps a tight lip on their own houses, but I figured it would be a good place to chase Green's bootlegging story. I waved down a taxi cab and was on my way. I thought I might talk with the driver to pass the time. Started with some idle banter with the driver. You're my last ride for the day. After that, I'm picking up my girl and heading over to Tightwad Hill for the game. I asked about Tightwad Hill. You don't know much about college ball, huh? I feel like that's what this guy talks like. That new stadium they built for Berkeley Hill last year. Seats over 70,000. Marvel of modern construction. And the team ain't bad either. That's Memorial Stadium. Oh, sorry. That's Memorial Stadium, I said. It cost over $1 million to build it. How's it related to any hill? Well, the geniuses built the stadium next to a large mound. Now, why would I pay good money to get into the place when I could watch the whole game just fine from that hill, huh? Seems others will think that way too. So many of us, they dubbed it the Tightwad Hill. I like that. The girls don't mind being outside? You kidding me? He laughed. The flappers love it up there. We can picnic and drink some gin without being cramped into wood benches. Suits both of us just fine. Except flappers. This has got to be 1920s. Well, I hope the team makes it. I hope the team takes it, I said as we stopped in front of a destination. He grinned. Don't matter. It'll be a ride anyway. I thanked him and stepped out. I opened the cab door in front of the North Beach warehouse with a wooden sign. The sign's text was too worn for me to decipher any of it in English, but a small gray spoon was still visible below the letters. I ripped my knuckles twice over the large metal door. The panel just above my head slid sideways to reveal a pair of eyes. It's green. The eyes looked me up and down, then just stared ahead. They were black and held no emotion. The room beyond was dimly lit, so I couldn't see much of the surrounding face. I cleared my throat, then a rumbling voice emerged from behind the door. Fill full your cups, feel no distress. At all our great thoughts shrinking less. Then I looked at the eyes, still unmoving. I understood. The doorman wanted a password. I thought I might have something in my notes that could help. End your game or we'll end you. Small black hand in the bottom right corner. What about wine bottle? Whenever I add the wine bottle, I'll make you something else. What else could we use? Is it password? Maybe we just... Oh wait, the tin spoon? Required a password. I bet I have to use this information somewhere else now. I have to... I don't think I'm gonna be able to get the password right away. Little Fanny? Yeah, I figured. Prohibition was a joke in San Francisco, and most speakeasies would let just about anyone through the door, but the mob ones weren't as relaxed with their rules. I knew I wouldn't enter unless I had the correct response. I wondered who I could ask about a speakeasy password. That's definitely not going to be where I'm getting into right yet. I could go to Green's house. I'm going to go to the barber shop instead. Green had suspected the Redstone stable of sending him the letter. Apparently, Stable owned a barber shop in the financial district. I figured there'd be no harm in asking Stable about it directly. So let's do it. I gave my address and slouched in the back seat of the taxicab. I thought a good way to pass the journey might be to chat with the driver. Yeah, another one of these. I glanced towards the driver and noticed the right side of his face was covered by a tin plate, painted to match his light skin tone. Set in place was a glass eye. I asked about his disfigurement. He gave a rough grunt and said, "The war." I stayed silent for a moment and he added, "Liz, near Flanders." "Which division?" 69th Infantry, he replied. Again, after a pause, he continued, "The Hun came at us quick. Don't remember much." He tapped his faceplate as he said, "Early casualty." "Was that your only battle?" I asked. He gave a short grunt and nodded. "Wish it wasn't. Many friends stayed at the front." We rolled to my destination. He turned to me and smiled. "Thanks for talking. Just one look at me." I smiled back and stepped out of the taxicab. Aww. Barbershop was down an alley in the financial district, opposite the red brick National Bank. The small bell above the door twinkled as I walked in. The hat rack was a deep mahogany, engraved with gold lettering that read Fraser & Co. Furnishings. The maroon leather chair looked comfortable. It seemed elaborate for a barbershop waiting chair. There was a tall man in the center of the room. He was wearing a flamboyant pink suit, tailored to accentuate his stature, with a maroon bow tie and a pocket square. I gathered that this was the Redstone table. I'm not going to talk to him just yet. The modern hydraulic barber chair had always seemed so ostentatious to me, but this one, with its soft brown cushions and gold embroidery, was the most ornate I'd ever seen. Two sides of the mirror's frame were cylindrical, painted blue and red, with white to look like the barber's poles. They clashed with the otherwise elegant furnishings. The frame on the back wall contained a yellowed photograph of an old man. He held an authentic smile and held scissors in his left hand. Stable's cabinet was similar to my own, but where was a dull gray metal, his own deep red wood that looked heavy. Where mine was a dull gray metal, his was... I said that wrong. Sometimes it do be that way. Alright, let's talk to him. This guy's got some pencil-thin eyebrows. The man turned to face me. He grinned, and squinting his blue eyes made the smile feel genuine. "I must apologize," he said. We do not take walk-ins." I told him why I was there. Actually, can I just study his face? That seems nice. I can just walk him. I just like watching him. I studied his face. The wrinkles around his eyes indicated that he was at least 40, but the rest of his skin was clean and smooth. He wore no hat and shaved his head completely bald. When combined with his smooth skin, it hinted at the look of a small turtle. His pink suit and maroon accessories only added to his eccentricity. He nodded and said, "How foolish of me. Of course, you're here for information, Miss Malone." Well, how about a drink, I asked. To get us started, right? Stable's eyes lit up as he laughed. You're completely unlike the other sleuths. He poured me a whiskey and handed it to me. As I gulped it, he asked me why I was there with genuine curiosity in his voice. I liked this guy, too. Do you know anything about, Shit, yeah, how did you know my name? He apparently liked smiling when pleased with himself. Barbers hear gossip from around the town, Miss Malone, and sometimes that gossip is worth remembering. And what gossip had you heard about me? I asked. Just the niece of the little San Francisco detective Louis Malone had resigned from her policewoman duties and started a private detection agency. That was months ago, was it not? I confess, I have not heard much since. I asked if he knew Louis. Not well enough, he said. I heard he did his job by the letter of the law, and I lost that alphabet years ago. Well, Miss Malone, will there be anything else? Green's past is a mystery. What do you know about Green's past? Only that he was constantly skirted the law. Well, Miss Malone, so that's all he knows is that he skirted the... I already know that. He's a bootlegger. Do you know the password for the tin spoon? No, he didn't know. He doesn't know jack shit. Curious who this picture frame is. That's the old man, I asked. Stable turned to look at the photograph. No, that is my grandfather, taken near the end of his life. Why did you hang it in here? My Zaid? This store was formerly owned by my grandfather. He started with humble beginnings. My Zaid taught me the meaning of hard work and dedication. I am humbled by my reminders of him. Well, Miss Malone, he smiled, will there be anything else? What else can I ask him about? Yeah, it is elaborate. Let me ask him about it. I looked at his furniture. I wanted trappings for a barber. Math was never my strong subject, but I can't see a barber making enough for all this. He smiled. Yes, I have other methods of procuring wealth. Do not engage in illicit activities, though, if that was your implication. Well, Miss Malone, he smiled. Will there be anything else? Let's see what else. I don't know if there's much else I can really ask him about. I may just ask him about his barber chair. Don't give me a cut, I asked. I don't see any clients around, Stable. I am sorry, Miss Malone, he smiled. To be completely honest, my gambling and business acumen give me a decent living on their own. The barber shop is a hobby, and I only give haircuts to close friends. And I can't be a close friend? And you don't want detective friends? Ah! I never claimed not having detective friends, he said. Just not the private variety. Well, Miss Malone, he smiled. Will there be anything else? I don't know that there's anything else that I have for him. Are there any statements, maybe? Stable admitted to having some wealth, but he insisted that it was all above board. Only gives friends haircuts. Stable claims he only gives haircuts to close friends. Interesting if not lucrative choice. Can I ask him about this? I'm gonna ask him about the suspecting the stable as well, because this is the stable if I'm correct. The stable wasn't ready to admit where his wealth had come from. Almost Malone. Green claims you bootleg, I stated bluntly. His grin didn't waver in his response. Would you hang me on Connor Green's claims? I may partake in some gambling, and I may have a talent for it, but it is nothing illegal, I can assure you. And you know nothing about Green's own bootlegging, I asked? Stable shook his head. I doubted he would ever answer a question straight. Okay. There's one more thing, maybe. I'm just gonna try to ask him directly about it. Yeah, he's not gonna be able to talk to me about it. Okay. I might be able to question him more later. Let's see if I can get out of here. Find something else. The front door had a bell. Go to Green's house. Mrs. Green would go there, or would be there to pump with more questions. Yeah, let's go ask Miss Green some questions. Gave my address and slouched in the backseat of the taxicab. I thought a good way to pass the journey might be to chat with the driver. When the driver turned to ask where I wanted to go, I saw his striking blue eyes looked younger than the graying temples beneath his wool cap. I was curious about his history. Struck up a conversation which led to his past life. Ever hear of the Suicide Club, he asked. I admitted I hadn't. Bob the Goat coined that phrase. Poor guy ate a runaway for his last meal. War pilots, I asked? Half right. We was mail carriers. We was mail carriers. Uncle Sam was training us for the military. Shame so few made it. I asked why he left. Rumor said the average pilot lasted 900 hours. Likely not that far off. Flying with no lights, no emergency landing, barely a weather report, never a parachute. What do they expect? Glad you're driving a taxi cab now? I asked as we pulled up to my destination. My wife is, but I miss flying every day. He turned to tip his cap, but I saw the sparkle in his eyes. I thanked him for his ride and left the car. Aww. I like these cute little taxi cab interactions. The Greens' apartment was a section of an old Western addition mansion. The owners had divided it for struggling families to rent after the 1906 fire. Once downtown had been rebuilt, the people of means moved out of the area. Recent immigrants, mainly from Japan, rented most of the apartments in this part of town. I knocked on the front door, but didn't get a response. The latch was undone, so I pushed it open and stepped into the room. The apartment had a dense cloud, and the room reeked of laudanum. Laudanum. Based on the smell, I imagined that she had enough opium to knock out a horse. You okay, miss? I'm gonna examine your house while you're knocked out. The gray trench coat was hanging in the doorway. It certainly looked identical to Lewis's. I searched the pockets and found no identifying marks. It might have been a different jacket, but its recent appearance was off-putting. Bottles on top of the round table were mostly empty. I opened the drawer of the backmost table. There were 2 train tickets. I mumbled St. Louis to myself, but then came to the crackling voice of Mrs. Green. Ha! Forget about moving, Connor. I won't budge. Her head was raised, but her eyelids still remained closed. She's dreaming. Forget about moving, Connor. I won't budge. I asked her further questions, but her head just lolled back to where it was. There was nothing else she'd say. The ashtray on top of the smallest table was overflowing with spent cigarettes. Empty bottles were strewn around the apartment. I brought one to my nose and smelled a distinct aroma of laudanum. opium mixed with booze, a harsh tonic, popular to give to women around this era. The wilting plant was on the furthest table from the door. I could never keep plants alive either. Even as the petals fell, they were still a vibrant yellow. I guess nothing left to do now but talk to the lady. What you got going on? I found Mrs. Green slumped in the chair, eyes closed, head rocking slowly. "Hello, Mrs. Green," I said loudly. She let out a loud moan from the chair, then lifted her head, but failed to raise her eyelids. She tilted her head to the side, giggled, then let it lull back into place. I shook her lightly, and she moaned again, but nothing more. She's in Goo-Goo Land. Jeez, man. What happened here? So you're a singer at the Tin Spoon, right? I need you to tell me what the fucking password is to get into there, you know? Yeah, she's not gonna talk to me. I think literally all that I can do here is just examine things. I did get some information though, I feel like. Empty bottles, a round table. Wilting plant. Alright, I'm gonna get out of here. Okay, to be honest, I don't feel any closer to being able to get into the Tin Spoon Lounge. What do you got for me, taxi cab? To Normandy on a streamliner. Oh, the Olympic was grand. Excellent machine. Crossed the Atlantic in a few days. Plenty amenities and then the new tourist captains too. That's about Normandy. He pitched his nose between his thumb and forefinger and shook his head from side to side. You can see why these immigrants keep flooding in. The entire old world stinks. You know, they eat frogs and snails. But the steamliner is where I want to be. Next time I'll just stay in the boat. He still had a frown on his face, and he pulled into my destination. Southern Coffee was an automat diner. Ethel Burgess, the lone waitress, was friendly to help with any inquiry. Of course, if you winked at her right, she'd show you the way to the downstairs toilet where Frankie played. Oh yeah, I already knew about this. Hey, bathroom attendant Frankie. Got some more things I want to ask you about. You know the password to the Tin Spoon? Fill your cups, feel no distress. At all our great thoughts shrinking less, he says. Who knew gangsters were the riddling type? Frankie laughed. All our great thoughts shrinking less, he said. What? I asked, puzzled. He turned and grabbed the bottle from his shelf. Vintage stuff like this. Strange they'd use it as their code. Wait. And I read the back of the label. Fill your cups, feel no distress. At all our great thoughts shrinking less. We'll do a good deed nevertheless. Ah! So the password was the poem from this vintage label. Aha! I now knew what he had to say to the doorman. I thought about what else I'd like to ask him. Is there anything else I'd like to ask him? He knew my name. No. Anything else? Arrival at Southern Coffee. Thanks, car. A loud-ass fucking car. Claims he doesn't bootleg, only gives friends haircuts. You know anything about this, Frankie? Yeah, probably got nothing for me anyway. I can get into the other place, that's what's important. Alright, Tin Spoon Lounge. Let's have a chat with a taxi cab driver. I love this job, he told me as we turned the corner of Polk and Bush Streets. I used to work in a plant across from the bay with my two brothers. You know what a boring life that gets? Bang this, push that, what a life. They weren't made for factories. Sure, they get paid more, they're part of a union. They have good pensions, but they can't beat this, he said, revving his engine. Such freedom! We spoke about his love of the open road until we reached my destination. I feel like I've had this exact same conversation with an Uber driver before. I opened the cab door in front of a North Beach warehouse with a wooden sign. The sign's text was too worn for me to decipher any of its English, but a small gray spoon was still visible from below the letters. Let me in, coach. I again wrapped my knuckles around the metal door. It slid open, and the dark eyes came and peered, stared at me and stuff. Then I looked in my notes. Thought about it for a long time, and then I said, what's this? We'll do a good deed nevertheless. I recited the line that Frankie had shown me on one of the bottles. The eyes squinted. Wait here, came a gruff response. The panel slid shut and I heard footsteps walking away. I rolled a cigarette and waited. Wow, after a quarter of an hour, it took him a while, the panel opened again. Bar is closed, but you can shoot pool in the upstairs room, said the eyes. He pulled the door ajar and I could see a set of metal stairs. I walked up the stairs and opened the thin wooden door to the billiards room. It was much smaller than I'd expected for a gangster's paradise. The only light came from the hanging lamps above the billiards table. A haze of cigarette smoke darkened the room's corners. A couple tall chairs were placed around the billiards table. All there. The pool table was the focus of the space, the light reflecting from its smooth green surface tinted the den. The room was lit only by the dangling lamps hanging above the billiards table. The rack on the wall held 5 cues. There's one missing, it seems. It's being used. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6 there. A clean ashtray next to an emptied glass and the table and the counter. A bottle of unlabeled wine sat on the space. When I sniffed, it smelled of strong spice. Nice spiced wine, then. Alright, I guess that's all that we can search there. How about this guy? I saw a tall, broad-shouldered man playing the table by himself. Based on Frankie's description, I gathered that this was Tiny Paul. Hey, Paul. I cleared my throat to get him to look at me, then followed with a casual, "Are you ever gonna take that shot?" He stood up straight, rested his cue on the table, and looked at me sideways. It was the petulant look of a boy forced to play with his younger sibling. "Hello," he sighed. His voice was deep. Apparently Ferry only hired baritones, but had no gravel. It echoed slightly around the small room. I imagine he could have huffed and puffed the entire block to rumble. "I like watching them," he said, nodding to the balls on the table, thinking through my options. I never shot much pool, but I thought he might like me more if I feigned interest. Considered lying to him, telling him that I played a lot. I'll stick to cards. I could say that. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't lie to him just then. Stud, blackjack, or bridge? He asked hoarsely. I raised an eyebrow and he showed a sheepish grin. A gambler plays them all. He continued after, cracking his knuckles. I don't think you're here for a game. You can ask for a drink. Start with a drink. Mind pouring us each a growler? I hoped getting Paul's lips wet might make it a little bit easier to grab something out of him, but he wasn't having it. Paul sighed. We're closed here. You'll have to get something later. He seemed annoyed at my stalling. You like green? Like or dislike, doesn't matter sometimes. I work with what I'm given, and he's given us a good lead. I suppose that's why you're here, Malone? So he'd known me too. The doorman must have looked me up. He talks fast. Anyhow, he said, eyeing the billiards table, you need anything from me? If you want something, better ask specific. Lobsters never failed to grate my nerves. He wouldn't tell me anything unless I pushed him with what I already knew. What do I already know? I don't think that there's anything in here. Much of a talker for most of the day. Okay, so I need to do something with Tiny Paul. Did I get any evidence involving Tiny Paul somehow? I don't really know that I have anything, do I? I'm gonna ask him about this. Green's wife is a torture here, I asked. Paul smiled. With the pipes she's got built into that body, she's the reason most fellas keep coming back to the joint. Okay. So you're giving Green the dough, I asked. That's right, he said. We gave him the cash to get the supply going. You already gave him the money. Aren't you afraid he's gonna run out on you, I asked. Tiny Paul frowned. I suppose you know less than I thought. Well, just to set you straight, that kid's right under my thumb. No way he'd get out of town alive before setting up our source. He turned his gaze back to the pool table. Know anything about this note? I asked, and pulled out the letter with the black hand on it. Tiny Paul looked at the page and then laughed with his whole body. So there is a letter, Green shaking over that. I'm not losing sleep though. Look, Green and I aren't the best pals, but nobody'll touch him with our protection. And none of us sent it to him, or else I would have known about it. Anything else? You know Green bootlegged, right? All he got was his frown. Paul refused to give me any leads. End your game or we'll end you. Got any ideas about that? He maintained ignorance. Bottle on the table, I asked. He said, that's the stuff, a sample from Green's source. I know some Napa wine that smells exactly like it, I said to him. That's so? He smiled. Well, that's one from Vancouver. Oh, I figured something out. I had to work every muscle in my face to stop my jaw from hitting the floor. Where's the wine from, Paul? I asked him again. It's from Vancouver, he repeated. Frankie had told me that only Napa grapes had this type of spice. If Paul didn't know this bottle was local, I wasn't going to tell him. But it had something very important. I had to confirm with Frankie, but if my hunch was on the money, then Connor Green was not getting his wine from Canada, and he wasn't playing square with Tiny Paul. Anything else? Paul asked me. I snapped back into the moment, as I considered I needed to tell him anything else, so I just snagged quite the load. Hell yeah! Oh, dude, it feels really good to unlock some information in this game. That's really cool. Alright. What else can I ask him about? Frankie had a bond with the old shaker at the bar. No, nothing there. Cabinet was similar to my own, but where mine was a dull gray metal. That was in the barber shop. I don't think there's anything there. What about a greenhouse? Hey, Tiny Paul, you know anything about this laudanum? Tried to press him further, but he got nothing from it. He sighed, apparently eager to get back to his game. I don't think there's anything else I can ask him in this list. Tiny Paul claims. These are all things that I learned from Tiny Paul. Hey, does the Redstone, like, do the bootlegging? Heard the name. Why all the gossip? He can tell you more about himself. You don't give me anything on him? Why would I do that? He shook his head. Anything else? You gotten a haircut from it? You knew my name. I'm curious about the correct answer here. Oh, I got an achievement. That's cool. Well, do a good deed, nevertheless, I repeated to Paul. Why make an old liquor slogan your password? Paul smiled. An old liquor slogan? That's rich. And here I thought you dicks were supposed to be learned. I raised a questioning brow. It's called The Drinking Song, a poem by Thomas Hardy, an old Brit. I asked more. It's all about an old man thinking we're the top of the chain and slowly understanding that we aren't. All our thoughts, all our theories amount to nothing. We're just apes floating in the wide ocean of space. How can you possibly cope with that? How do we even know what we are now? Hell with it. Take your mind off it. Have a drink and do something good. Not a bad code if you ask me. I tilted my head, neither agreeing or disagreeing. Simply impressed by Paul's knowledge of old Victorian poetry. Alright, that's enough of a lesson. Is there something else you wanted, or can I get back to this? Is there? You know anything about husband's infidelity? I think I'm done here. Don't have any idea what you're asking about that, Malone, he said when I pointed to an entry in my notes. Oh, I already got that. Didn't have anything else to say to him. So, he cracked his knuckles, arched over the table, and resumed lining up his shots. Gotta blow my nose here real quick, sorry. I apologize for that. I know that probably sucks. The room was much smaller than I'd expected from a gangster paradise. The only light came from hanging lamps above the billiards table, and the haze of the smoke darkened the corners. Right, I think I'm done here. But the question is, where do I go now? I need to go back to Southern Coffee because I need to go ask Frankie about that thing that I just found out. About the wine suppliers. I grabbed a taxi cab and I talked with the taxi cab driver. Long shift, I asked? Exhaled the driver with about as much gravel as a cement mixer. Okay.
Been on the road 6 hours. Probably pull another 6 before I get back to the missus. Seems like I just wasted away in this taxi while the bus just overflows in his coffers.
I kept him talking. He complained about his life for a little while and he ended with,
"But it's all the same shit for all working folks, isn't it?"
because he's super gravelly. Jeez, man.
They told us all we've got is hope, but then the rich break the rules, and only the rich break them too. I've been reading Henry R. Carey. Fella talks a lot about this. Says America is ruled in a secret by rich men, and the wise leaders don't get to go to the top. They ain't encouraged to do so.
So what's your way out? He smiled.
Keep reading, stay sharp, become one of the rich men. The great thing about America, anyone can get there.
I disagreed. I doubt these rich folks will let you get into their aristocracy. Why not just overthrow them? He shook his head.
You just don't get it. Poverty is permanent for the lazy. I'm a hard worker. I'll get out of this mess.
Anyhow, he said,
We've arrived. You're good on this.
Okay, get in there. Hey, Frankie. Tiny Paul says that he and Fairy Gang didn't have been under their thumb. Tiny Paul thinks that his wine is from Vancouver even though it isn't. So I wanted to ask that up to Frankie. You'll like this, I told him. Remember that wine you offered me? Oh, my Zinfandel you nearly finished. Where'd you say that grape was from? It's from here, California, Napa or Sonoma. Sure? Yes, Malone, that's the only place that these grapes grow nowadays. And not Canada, I asked. What are you swinging at, Malone? Tiny Paul had a bottle of wine that tasted the exact same, that identical spice. You said it was from Green's bootlegging source, from Vancouver. Malone, I'm telling you, he said, no wine anywhere else in the world has that spice. It ain't from Vancouver, and Green ain't getting it cheap. I nodded. Well, you just confirm my hunch. Green's got no source. He must be swindling Tiny Paul and the entire Fairy Gang, and I bet he'll run away with the money. Frankie let out a long whistle in disbelief. Frankie shook his head from side to side. So now that you know this scheme is bunk, what are you gonna do? I have to know more about Green before I can go back to him. That bootlegging is bunk, but I still don't have anything on his past, and I need to chase up that letter of his. Well, let me know if there's anything I can do to help Malone. I thanked him and got up from the bar stool. I guess that's all I needed from him. Don't gotta talk to him about anything else. I think if I go to Green's house, maybe Mrs. Green? No, she's still probably like it. Maybe now I have to go to the Tin Spoon Lounge and confront, or not the Tin Spoon Lounge. Sorry, I need to go to the barber. And if I confront this guy about the fake wine, maybe he'll have something to say about it. I hailed a driver, gave him the address, and stepped through the back door. I debated talking about the driver. Okay, yeah, sure. I began speaking with the driver, and our conversation came to airships. You hear about this Zeppelin fella, he asked? The crazy German thinks that he can run in transatlantic flights. The Allies won't let him build any dirigibles now. I don't know what that word is. But I say, give the man a shot. We spoke about the first transatlantic flights and how he saw airships as the time travel of the future. So, as the travel of the future. My head was in the clouds when I stepped out of the taxi cab at my destination. I brought my thoughts back to San Francisco and continued on the case. Barbershop is down the alley. It stood at the center. Well, will there be anything else? He said he knows nothing more, but I'm sure that he does. Maybe I just went here for nothing. I feel like there's gotta be something that I can say to this guy to get him to give me more information, though. Tiny Paul claims that the Fieri gang didn't send Green the letter. Got the others watching Green. I don't know what I should ask him. So in the barber shop, is there anything else that I haven't asked him about? I don't think that there is, really. And it's just like a waiting chair, like a hat rack. Wait, Fraser and Co. Furnishings? Oh, good! Finally I got something. I pulled the Green's note from my pocket and showed it to him, but didn't let him hold it. Green tells me this letter is from you, I told him. He doesn't like the threats. Stable lowered his voice to study the note, then chuckled. His knowing grin returned to his face. This is a black-hand letter, he said, flourishing a hand towards the paper. Have you ever seen a black-hand letter, Miss Malone? I confessed I hadn't. Exactly, he said. You should bring your friend Shipman at the station and ask what it means. Sam Shipman had been one of my uncle's regular partners in the Vice rackets. I wondered what Shipman could have done with the Green's case. Stable seemed to think that he had a lot to do with it. I pocketed the letter and continued my questions, but I made a note to stop by my police headquarters and see Shipman. Well, Miss Malone. Know anything about this? Shipman can tell you more. Maybe that was it. Maybe now I can go to the new place. Let's see if that's the case. Thankfully there's no like travel costs or anything. Cool, a new location, the police station. I always dreaded visiting the PD after I'd flown the coop. And I was in no mood right now, but if if Shipman did know something about Green's note, then I had to chase it up. I stepped into the taxi and rocked into a comfortable position. I talked to the driver. Some weather, ain't it? He said with a southern drawl. It's San Francisco, I replied. Expect fog and bring a jacket. Wish I'd known that coming from Missouri. Maybe would have stayed on the river. There were always recent transplants from the city. Why'd you come here? Well, you know, I had dreams of adventure, dreams my small town couldn't fill. Thought of myself as a regular Mark Twain. But you know, I recently heard a quote of his. The coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. He laughed to himself. We talked about San Francisco, its overcast climate, its treacherous hills, and its lush green parks. Eventually we rolled into my destination, but before leaving I asked, did Mark Twain really say that about San Francisco? The driver smiled and shook his head. Nope, but I bet if I tell you he did, at least you'll remember the quote. You'll remember a quote that's mine. I chuckled and left the taxi cab. Oh, so you just made up the quote? Okay. The North Beach Station was the San Francisco Police Department headquarters, also poetically baptized the Hall of Justice. The building dominated the corner of Curie and Washington in Chinatown, rebuilt after the 1906 earthquake. I thought it looked even more sour than it did before. I strode to the young Bob girl behind the large oak desk. She must have been new because we shared no recognition of one another. I asked for Shipman when she motioned to a chair as she pressed a pearl button. I sat down, and she disappeared through a frosted door. I rolled another cigarette to pass the time. Between puffs, I thought about the shape of my super sick smoke plumes. Between puffs, I thought about the shape of my smoke plumes, letting my mind wander through abstraction. Whatever thought about the department found its way into my head, I closed my eyes and drifted back into meditation. Most of the SFPD refused to give me any thought to a female private detective. I was determined to return their courtesy. It wasn't long before Shipman walked out of a frosted door. Samuel Shipman smiled when he saw me. He was tall and tanned. He had always been helpful. Let's hear about that. He'd always been helpful to me in my days in the forest, working closely with Lewis. He acquired the habit of bouncing theories my way. He judged offers purely on results, and because of that, he was one of my few fans. We exchanged brief pleasantries before he said, "Wouldn't come here for a glad handing." He had a habit of removing the subject from his sentences. What needs doing? I explained my case to him. He scoffed when I mentioned Connor Green. Working for that pinhead? Got a good mind to run him up a flagpole. I guess I need to know about this letter. I handed him the note Green had given me and explained its context. After looking it over, Shipman tried to stifle a laugh. Complete bunk, he said. See this symbol in the corner? Mark of the Black Hand Gang. Except Black Hand letters are always ransom letters, not threats. No foothold in this coast anyhow. Never been one in California. So this letter's a fake? Shipman nodded. Someone trying to imitate the Black Hand. I grunted a sigh and noted what he said. Don't know if Green is getting one over on you, he said, or if someone else is pulling Green's leg. But having more dirt on the man couldn't hurt, especially if he's your client. I agreed. I've been trying to dig through his past. You got any bunk on him? Shipman shook his head. No. From Oakland is all I know, but I can do some more digging. I thanked him for that. Under a pile of vice, though. Might take a while. Why don't I telephone when I find something? I had no office where I could receive messages, but I dreaded returning to the station. I told him to call Southern Coffee. Just leave anything with Franklin Conway, I instructed. He said that was all right. We traded goodbyes, and I went to the station's entrance. Now I knew the letter was fake, and Tiny Paul's Wine had already shown me that Green's bootlegging scheme was bunk. I just had to wait for Shipman's call at Southern Coffee to get some dirt on Green. I was debating where to go next. This is a good question. Where do I go next? Is Green better now? She's still crazy on opium. Okay, so I have the source of Green's letter now. And it's a forgery, so either Green was pulling my leg or somebody else had a hold of it. I still have to discover Green's past, and to be honest, I don't know where, so I'm gonna start at Southern Coffee. Yeah, it says if I'm stuck on the case, go here, have a drink. I'm just gonna ask him about the thing that I am working on right now. Let's see what the taxi cab driver has to say. An economics student at Stanford, working to pay his room and board. An enthusiastic talker, the type of student that had yet to discover that he was not the foremost expert on any topic. And he disseminated European politics as though he was preaching an unquestionable gospel. I indulged him. You see, he said with a proud grin, France and England will be fine. They're going through the same resurgence that's happening here. War has only made them stronger. I asked about Germany. Oh, the filthy Hun, he snorted. Why should we care about them? Chancellor Marx puts out a statement asking us to take away our sanctions. Hell, if he wants a fair shake, he shouldn't have started a damn war. Why should we care about them? I disagreed. The Germans depleted their gold reserves last month. They wouldn't be able to run their country. The people will have to break free somehow, and it might not be pretty when they do. The driver snorted. Fritz coming back? On your lifetime, miss. We stamped him down for good. We rolled to my destination and I exited the taxi cab. Man, that's an interesting, depiction of how Americans viewed, the Germans. In the 1920s. Post-World War I. Ask about Shipman's message. This is a very specific thing. Any messages, Frankie? I asked him, and what do you mean by that? Well, I told Sam Shipman, an old contact in the force, to leave any dirt with you if you found it. Frankie laughed. Well, so now I'm your bartender and your secretary. Say, if I become your housemaid, will you at least pay me? So I'm guessing you haven't heard of anything, I said. Nothing yet, Miss Chief. Frankie chuckled. Shipman's supposed to call you about Green. What have you got so far? Well, you'll like this, I told him. Remember that wine you offered me? My Zinfandel you nearly finished. Where'd you say that grape was from? Oh, I already did this, didn't I? And not Canada. Yeah, I already talked to him about this. Why? You must be swindling Tiny Paul and the entire fairy gang. Yeah, I know this. PC, he said, his excited voice crackling in the speaker. Find anything on Green, I asked? Nothing, he said. I was puzzled. Then why'd you call? That's the idea. First, got pinched for a brawl in the ferry building. That was in November 1920. Before that, no Connor Green anywhere around the bay. What? Strange, he continued. I has trouble staying out of a mess, mixed up in something nearly every week, so only appearing a few years ago? That Oakland backstory is Swiss cheese. What are you thinking? Green's got a different past, I asked? Uh-huh, he said. Guess that he just got here in 1920 and never been straight about where he's from. Wait, I said, if Connor Green was a criminal in another town, easily some cop would recognize the name and send it back home. San Francisco Police Department is not that big. Right, Shipman agreed. If it's the same name. Could be his real identity disappeared in another town. I thought it aloud. So he might have changed lives. Is there any way to confirm that? If Green fled, the local bulls would have kept looking for him. But if not... But not if they had thought he died. Get these cases sometimes, where mobsters fake a death to escape a burn. Use a mangled stiff to do it, someone unrecognizable. That way they get out of town without a chase. Got any mobster deaths in 1920, I asked. A ton. Too many to look through, but narrow the search for me. A town he might be from. I can check a specific city's archive. Anything in your notes that tells where he could be from? Shit. I'm fine, don't worry about me. A ton. Could it be that the train ticket that I found in Miss Green's house is what they're talking about? Tickets to St. Louis. Found some tickets to St. Louis in Green's apartment, I told him. The missus was ruffled when I picked them up. I stayed on the telephone while Shipman used another line to call his contact at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I was nursing a glass of gin when he got back to me. Lucky break, PC. Seems there's one that fits the bill. He read aloud an article from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch dated October 8, 1920. Gun battle at June's Diner. Gangster dead. Suspected bandit clubhouse. Scene of another shooting. A heated argument turned deadly Thursday as multiple shots rang inside June's Diner on 14th Street. Suspected hideout of Egan's Rats. A man was found dead at the scene, unidentified due to the shotgun wounds to his face. Police suspect he's a mobster, Breg the Jester, who had hired a private eye to investigate the threats on his life. Last month, Chief of Police Brandon said investigating gangster on gangster deaths was a waste of time, and the discovery of the threats led to many to believe that the police wouldn't look further into the case. Hold on, I said. This Breg character had hired a private detective? Seems the police are quick to forget a case, if they've got a reason to think it's just gangster violence. This lines up with Green, I said. It's better. Breg's first name is Connor. I cursed loudly through the telephone. I continued with my theory. And your story says that Breg was deeply indebted, so maybe Green's just waiting in San Francisco until he's got enough dough to skip town and go home. He'd have some bootlegging business, Shipman asked. Why would he leave that behind? No, I shook my head. His wine is complete bunk. It's local stuff. Not any Canadian he might be claiming. I didn't know why he'd pull a fast one until now. Returning Breg to St. Louis could be huge. Swing by the station. We'll iron it all out. I agreed and slammed his receiver on the pegs. Gotta go. What's the news on Green? Frankie asked as I headed up the stairs. Now it seemed like I had all the details. I summarized it for him. So, the total wrap. Green isn't really Green at all. He's Breg the Jester, former member of Egan's Rats from St. Louis. He's Breg? Frankie was shocked. But he's been here a while, Malone. Sure, I said, but only since 1920. Couldn't pay off his debt in Missouri, so he faked his death and moved to San Francisco. He's been longing to go back, but he needs a way to settle his score before he can show his face again. Is that where his bootlegging comes in? Frankie asked. Uh-huh. Green set up a sham running scheme. A sham running scheme. Sham rum running scheme. That's hard to say. It's like a sham rum running. It's like a tongue twister. He brought local wine, but claimed to get it at a lower price from Canada. He convinced Tiny Paul to front him a heap of cash for it. Instead of providing for the wine, he's planning to skip town with Paul's money, disappearing to St. Louis with enough dough to pay back his debts. He already faked his death once, so he'll do it again here? Frankie asked. That's right. His plan is similar to his last one. Hire a detective claiming he's scared for his life, fake his death, then know the police won't bother him with underground violence. Frankie looked at me with a blank stare. Seems like all the pieces fit, he said. So he just hired you as a cover? I sighed. Seems like it. Don't worry about that, Frankie started saying. Did I cut him off? I'm going to see Shipman now. I'll sweep away this mess and then I'll come back and see you. Have a stiff drink ready, I instructed. Just be careful, Malone. Egan's Rats have a reputation. They can be ruthless. I turned and walked up the stairs. Hey, buddy. What'd you like this time? Let's see what it is. Ah, it's the same thing. It's just like some channel. I don't get that channel. There is only one place to go. Oh, I thought that was your channel. I asked you about that, and you never responded. I was like, is that yours? And then there was silence. But I understand. You probably aren't watching me 100%, keeping me on in the background. That's what I do for most streamers. So that's yours, huh? I'll keep this. I'm gonna look at a couple videos. See what kind of videos you make here. It's your dad's? Actually, that makes more sense. This does look like a father's channel. There's like kind of kids here. Power of rocket launch. Wow. Green had hired me for cover so that he could blow town. Shipman held the final evidence to sink the plan. I needed to get to the station. I stepped into the taxicab and was consumed with my own thoughts about the case. I'd finally caught my break, but it was just a dud. I hadn't realized it, but I had been reveling in real detective work. Once I learned it was all bunk, my mind reverted to its incessant nagging. I wondered if I knew that or I wallowed in. I wonder if... Can't join my Discord? I don't know why that is. You should be able to, just by clicking the button. Maybe I have to resend the link or redo the link, but I'll do that after the stream, maybe. I wondered if I was just a puppet to some 2-bit mobster. It's hardly bringing much justice to anybody, which made me unsure what exactly it was that I was doing. I supposed I was wasting my time. An invalid invite? I'll fix it after the stream. It all came back to the same basic premise. You're failing, my inner voice said. I began to feel nauseous in the car. My mind repeated its last thought. You're failing. Interesting. And then everything turned to black. As if someone had shut off all the lights. My naked arms faded into view. They emitted a soft white glow. I rubbed my eyes, willing them to focus without success. Between my fingers it appeared in the distance. I could hardly see, but it came as the object billowed. A calamity was come to me. Then I understood what it was. Lewis's gray coat. It flowed. I floated towards it. I reached out to grab the coat, which was when I saw the needles. No, not needles. Glass, shards, falling all around me. One piece wedged itself deep in my right elbow. I grimaced, but I was unable to make any noise or movements. But then suddenly, as the rain had started, it stopped. I looked upward with caution, wary of the rain's return, but above me I saw the gray coat. It was no longer billowing. It was rigid, a shield against the terrible rain. It started falling, slowly at first, but quickly it gained speed. It came upon me and enveloped me completely. It was suffocating. I couldn't breathe. I let out a gasp. And then a light! This is the brightest this game has ever been. It pierced my eye sockets, hitting the back of my skull like a hammer on an anvil. I directed all of my energy into my lungs and forced out a yell. That helped. Everything became quiet. I could breathe deeply. Oh, thanks for that. Is that... You're the best, bro. Love your streams. You are the best, bro. Love your streams. Praise. Praise, go Klein. Go clean. It's go clean. It's not Klein. I want to say it's Klein, but it's not. It's clean. Chipman showed his teeth in a big, teethy smile. That was just a vision of like a jacket, huh? Thought you'd never come around, he said. What happened? Relax, PC, just a few scratches. Quite the auto crashed. It flew through the front window. They took out a large piece of glass from your right arm. I nodded in agreement. I grimaced as the shake sent a sharp pain through my skull. I mumbled the words auto-crash to myself. I wondered how bad the accident must have been. Chipman removed a flask from his pocket, unscrewed the top, and handed it to me. Not the best hooch, but might get rid of the banging in your head. Took a swig. Closed my eyes and sighed a deep breath as the it's warm. That's definitely a typo. I closed my eyes and sighed a deep breath as the its warmth burned down my throat. Blech. I know modern medicine doubts it, but that gulp of moonshine helped. Yeah, come on. You'd think that would, like, I don't know. I guess it is hard to proofread this kind of thing when it's, like, already in the program. I went to give the flask back to Shipman, but he went and put a hand out to stop me. Hang on to it. Might need another swig after what I'm about to tell you. I propped myself up on my left shoulder to listen. About Green's case. Two of us figured he was going to fake his own death. Shipman clicked his tongue to his teeth and looked around the floor. That ain't happening. Last night, Connor Green was shot through the heart twice. This just became a murder case. What? I shouted. The exclamation was impulsive. I swung my legs quickly around and sat on the edge of my bed. My headache had suddenly vanished. Whoa there, Shipman said. Look, been here with you all night, he added quickly, in that chair just beside the bed. Just telephoned the station to check in, and that's the rap they given me. Told them what I'd known from you, and they said they'd chase it up. You are the best streamer. I love you. www.pornhub.com. Sorry, not the link. Sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to leak porn. I'm so sorry. I'm. Oh, that's such an embarrassment. I can't. I'm just. Look, I'll. My career's over. I'm sorry. I have to go. Sorry. I'm ending the stream. I'm just kidding. I'm not actually. How'd you know it was him? Another involuntary question. I was running on instinct. PC, faking your death involves a mangled body. Shot through the chest? His face is still intact. Whatever Green was planning on doing, he didn't get that far. We looked it up. He doesn't have a twin. That would be way too easy, Shipman grinned. Click if you dare. Ooh. I know what Pornhub is. I don't have to click that link. Green hired you for this case, he continued. Gives you every right to follow it up if you want. That said, he was likely taking you for a ride. Wouldn't blame you if you wanted to drop it. But I'd like your help, PC. You know the case. Could use your head even if it's been a little bumped. Once you're feeling better, I'll be at the station. Come find me there. Shipman stood up and cracked his back. Maybe I'll catch some shut-eye on top of my desk, too. Here beats that chair you got. He turned and walked out. Stood up from the creaking bed and surveyed my cluttered apartment. How you doing, Cat? Cat slept on the foot of the bed. I scratched behind his ear. Seemed to like it. Alright. Stayed at the doorway and took a deep breath. I suppose I owed Shipman enough to help solve the case, even if Green had given me the runaround. After all, what type of detective would leave a case half solved? Spent 24 hours, I need more hours with you. You spent the weekend getting even, ooh, ooh. You spent the late nights making things right but between us, but now it's all... What is this song? I'm trying to remember. I need a girl like you, yeah, girls like you, love fun, yeah, me too, what I want. You gotta tell me the name of that song. There's only one place to go, the police station. Although Green had just been using me, his life had apparently been in danger all along. Resolved to find his killer, I headed to the North Beach station to find any information regarding Shipman that could give me before starting the chase. I could just choose not to go, and then I would just go later, because there's only one thing to do. I flagged a taxi cab and was on my way. I thought about chatting with him, and I did. Just before starting to talk with the driver, I noticed a newspaper behind me with the headline about the recent International Winter Sports event. I read it. The International Winter Sports Week began today with the opening ceremony held in the Alpine city of Chamois, France. The United States has sent 24 of our finest men and women to compete in the inaugural contest. Our hopefuls are led by Charles Jutra, national speed skating champion, and our men's ice hockey team, who looks to upset the Canadian favorites. Organized by the French Olympic Committee, the same body that runs the famous Summer Games, this week of sports has been informally dubbed the Winter Olympics. Competing begins tomorrow. FortnitePorn.com. That seems like a risk. A risk I do not want to take. I put the paper down as we arrived at my destination. The headquarters building dominated the corner of Kearney and Washington in Chinatown. Rebuilt after the 1906 earthquake, I thought it looked even more sour than it had before. I stepped out of the taxicab and walked through the station doors, ready to chase any leads on Green. But standing in front of me as I entered, bawling her eyes from their sockets, was Miss Green. She saw me and brought her wailing eyes closer. I'm actually going to make it so that the chat doesn't appear as long, just so that it's not blocking the text there. I realized that it was totally blocking it. The chat box, going to go to properties, real quick, not going to take more than a couple seconds. I'm just going to take that back down to like 80, 90, 90. It seems about right. 88, sure. Cool. I stepped out of the taxicab and walked through the station doors, ready to chase any leads on Green. Standing in front of me as I entered, bawling her eyes, was Mrs. Green. Malone, she exhaled through her sobbing. You were working for my husband. What happened? The breathing obscured her next sentences, but I got the general idea. I told her I knew as little about the matter as she did, but that I was looking into it, and I was sure the officers were doing their best. She begged me to help them, again drowning most of her sentences with her sobbing. I promised I would try. She took a slow inhale, raised her chest, and walked out of the station. When she was out of sight, Fred Grant came around the corner and let out a snort. Grant was another investigator for the SFPD. I noticed his little wispy hair. More gray and thin than I'd seen it last, a cigar often poked through his mouth, hardening his jaw and twisting his face into a scowl. Suppose that was an appropriate look for a man who enjoyed the sinister parts of police work. I wondered if he still took his bribes in liquid form. Grant had never been a supporter of policewomen, and he was no fan of mine. He lighted the cigar and said, "The widow seems pretty torn up about him. You're really helping her out?" I said I was. And he gave me another snort. Figured she'd go to you after we told her no. I raised a questioning eyebrow. Look, last thing I gotta do is head to the tin spoon. And this goes in the freezer. You meant he was about to close the case cold. That meant he was about to close the case cold. You weren't chasing it up? I asked. He looked appalled that I would even ask. I got more to deal with than some dead gangster. Captain doesn't care about crap like this, so long as it's not spreading too far. The fuck is wrong with these policemen? And what about the girls? What do she expect? He asked. This broad goes and marries an Irishman. Well, he's a racist, too. And a sexist. Probably killed by one of his own, or some dago while these bums run together. I gave him a frown, to which he responded, Look, if the missus wants you on this, that's her gamble. But it ain't gonna lead you to nowhere, and don't expect support from the boys. Not even if I find Green's killer. He laughed. If you got a confession, we'll cop him. Not something the DA can thumb at his nose at either. They gotta admit 3 things. Means, how they killed Green. Opportunity, when they did it. And motivation, why they bother. Actually, I want to write that down. Means, opportunity, and motivation are what I need right now. Alright. You do that, then sure, we'll be right behind you. But there ain't nobody here looking into it, I promise. He pulled on a cap and walked out. I hurled a glare in Grant's direction, and I was still fuming as I turned down the hallway toward Shipman's office. Shipman was frowning at the stacks of paper atop his desk, but he stood up and smiled when he saw me. Glad you made it. I vented about Grant. Shipman shook his head. Ain't wrong, you know. I must have scowled at a mean look at him because he was quite quick to follow with, Not that the case is dead, PC, but Captain has nobody on it. Even Grant's coming off as soon as he can. We're underwater with other bunk. So you have nothing for me. Not true. The department still did the regular foxtrot. He tossed me a beige folder. Inside was a large black and white photograph of Green's face. Muscles relaxed and eyes closed. Looks almost normal apart from the flattened hat behind his head and the dirt and grass behind that. The report behind the picture noted 3 important clues. First, Green died at midnight the previous night. I cursed myself that I had been so close to stopping it. Second, that Green was killed with 2 .45 caliber bullets, close to the chest. Those slugs weren't from a pea shooter. Green was killed by a mean gun. And finally, that Green was found this morning laying in Washington Square Park. That was only a block away from the Tin Spoon. I noted each of these 3 facts and gave a folder back to the shipman. You were timed out. I think you're choosing to send that message yourself there, bud. All we got, Shipman said, laying the folder back on his desk. Can pinch the gunman if you improve the case, but you got to solve it without much support. Don't have time to help either, he sighed. No point in coming back here until you've got your man. Are you just trying to, like, block the message on the side? That'd be kind of fun. Here, in that case. Yoink. I'm just gonna put it down here for a bit. Now it's not gonna block anything. Did it work? Actually, hold on. Maybe it didn't work. Looks like it barely moved. Transition. Oh, that's how I had to do it. I had to hit the transition button. I never had much support. Well, Shipman sighed, at least I'm for you, but listen, we need a confession on this one. Captain doesn't want to run around. Right, Grant mentioned. They have to admit how and why and when they killed Green. That's it. Prove that and we'll pick him up, he said. Never been on a murder before, right? Can get tense, just so you know. If they accuse someone but can't prove anything, they'll turn like a switch. Maybe like you one minute, but hate you the next. Chatting with folks is your easiest route to more information, but won't get any banter after you accuse someone of murder. So be careful who you accuse. Could make your case harder if you go the wrong way. Alright, I get it, I said, as I internalized it. But remember, Shipman concluded, plenty of lies out there. But you can contradict means, motive, or opportunity with anything in your notes. I thanked him and walked out of his office. I stood outside the police station and went over the mantra. I had to prove means, motive, and opportunity for anyone I suspected of the murder. Once I had found all of those things for a single person, I'd have them licked. I started out to begin the chase. Let's start at Green's house. Maybe Green's got something more helpful today. I flagged a taxi cab. I asked him about his shift and how much longer he'd be driving. Not all my conversations were that memorable. Okay. A section of an old Western Additions mansion. The owners had divided it for struggling families who rent after the 1906 fire. Oh, I've already seen it. I came upon the greenhouse and knocked on the door. This time Miss Green opened it quickly. Miss Malone, she panted, with noticeable shock in her eyes. I'm just frightened about people knocking at my door, she said, by the way of explanation. After what happened to my husband, everything feels so cold. Oh, I'm blabbering. Please, come inside. She led the way down 2 chairs as we sat down. She was more awake than the previous day, but her hair had been a bit tousled, and her S's hung in the air long enough to belie her lack of complete sobriety. Have you found anything about my husband's killer? She asked. I nodded, and replied that progress was good, but I said that I would need to ask her some questions to expedite the investigation. She straightened in her chair and replied with, certainly. I can accuse her just right now without any kind of evidence? That's really bunk. Okay. I had to prove the means of any suspects that they could have killed Green. I'd ask anybody what they thought about possible means. Knowledge of any weapon used to kill your husband, I asked her. You mean, do I know anything about guns? I'm sorry, Miss Malone. I wouldn't even know where to get one. Can I contradict her? So she might know how to get guns. Green was killed by a mean gun. Shipman had died at midnight the previous night. He's from Oakland, but nobody knows him before 1920. I think I might try this. I hope I don't make her angry. What does this have to do with a gun, she asked. If she was right, it didn't. I wouldn't even know where to get a gun. I don't think I have anything for this, because I don't remember anything about a gun. Claims it doesn't have bootleg, only gives friends haircuts. Didn't send the letter, thinks the wine is legitimate. I got nothing. Need to prove the opportunity of a suspect, one that could have killed Green. I could ask anybody what they thought about a possible opportunity. What were you doing last night? Of course. Let's see here. I was singing with the band, the show ending at about 10 o'clock. Then we went up into the billiard hall. Haunts me that Connor was so close when he was killed, she winced. None of us heard anything, with how loud we were and how sealed the building is. How late were you in the pool room? I asked. Till early in the morning, say 2 or 3? I can't contradict that yet. I don't even know if these have contradictions. The truth is that they might be telling the truth, I feel like. Do you ever know of anybody with any reason whatsoever to kill your husband? I asked her. She mentioned her husband had been a bootlegger, then turned to the waterworks for a few minutes. I got her calmed down again and asked, were there any domestic quarrels? She pouted at my question. Every marriage has its quarrels, Miss Malone, she snapped, but I loved him dearly. So that was motive. I already asked her about motive, right? What the fuck is going on with this gray trench coat here? I can use that to contradict? So I can contradict, I love him dearly. I don't know that I believe that she didn't love him dearly. She was like chasing him around trying to find like the one woman, yeah. Mouth going off like a shotgun. It's all part of the job. I decided to ask about something else. There's lots of things that I could ask her about, actually, because this is the first time I've been able to talk to her. What's up with your gray coat? Where'd you get it? I asked. Her unfocused eyes moved to the gray trench coat. Connor brought it home one day. It was too small for his frame, but I thought it looked swell on me. Seems built for a man, I said. Sure, but it's the freedom age, darling. We can't wear anything. We can wear anything or even nothing at all. What's going on when you arrived there? How did you end up at Southern Coffee yesterday? I told you I followed Connor to your apartments and became furious when I saw he was calling on another woman. And when were you shadowing your husband to begin with? I pressed. Oh, that. She stutters silently. Well, I heard rumors that Connor might have been unfaithful. I discovered that they were baseless, but, well, a wife never truly knows. That is why I followed you all to the Southern Coffee. I had to know the truth, Miss Malone. She was a singer. A jazz singer. She gave a languid nod. I wonder how she started singing, so I asked. I asked her about her roots. She started, Papa never liked the petting parties, or the liquor, or the young men in roadsters, but he never made a fuss about it, not until I started to sing. That's enough to get a girl disowned, I suppose. I was a teenage prima donna looking for attention, she sighed. Never liked singing. Oh, but I love it, she said as she breathed in a smile. The lights, the shining dresses, the dancing, it's all marvelous. For a young girl craving attention, there's no better cure than the spotlight. I suppose I understood that. I nodded and changed the subject back to the case. Why are you suspecting infidelity? I guess she's just sticking to the same story. Okay. So that's all of that. Recently changed careers, I told her, to bootlegging. She sobbed. I know the police told me the details this morning, that Connor had gotten a letter that he had begun bootlegging again, and that he thought a man named Redstone Stable was after him for it. It seemed they had told her everything. What about that wine bottle you just had, lady? That was in your house. Empty bottles. Yes, I've made a terrible housemaid, she said. It's hard for a working girl, you understand. In many ways I did, but my clutter was less inebriating, and I told her so. Sometimes the vocal cords need a little lubrication, she smiled. Do a raid, please. I have never been in one. Oh yeah, sure. I'm probably gonna end my stream here soon, so when I do, I'll make sure to do a raid for you. I'll probably give it like another 15 or so minutes to go and finish cleaning up and checking out this area. Ask about notes. Your husband, got a threatening letter, you know that? She repeated that the police had already told her the details. Should the Tiny Paul gave Green a lot of cash? She doesn't care. Did you know that his past is a lie? She squirmed but said nothing, so I pressed her. Mrs. Green, I'm investigating his death. You're right, she sighed. He had told me how he was from the East, though he'd lied to everyone else. He claimed he had to flee from his past. I never knew all the details, so that's all I knew, and you're the first person I've told. He also had 2 train tickets to get there, I continued. He wanted to return? Well, those tickets have no date printed on them, she paused, looking at me from underneath the long lashes, and continued. He was thinking of going back there. I guess whatever trouble he had was blowing over. But I refused. I told him I wanted to stay in San Francisco. Whether Connor and I quarreled, a sharp, wavering inhale cut off her sentence. Well, he kept them around to brandish, to show me that he loved me, and that he stayed here only for me. I nodded and we spoke about something else. What else can I yell at you about? Dangling lamps, password. Well, she has to know the password, right? How'd you know the password? I mean, you work there, I guess, but what do you think about it? What's that supposed to be, she asked. It's the password for the tin spoon. Oh, precious, she said. My password to that joint is my voice. That's cool. Black hand letters, fake. Is there anything else? Found close. What were you doing last night, I asked. As I said before, I was in the pool room from around 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to contradict because I honestly don't have anything else that I know about her. Is there anything else that's changed about this area? I think it's basically the same. Alright, well... I feel like the tin spoon might be a good place to go check, because that's where Green was killed. Stepped into the taxi and rocked into a comfortable position. Talked to this guy real quick. Exchanged forgettable banter with the driver, and he asked, "Hear the latest news about Harry Daugherty?" Here, Dory, I talked about Dory with him. Seems Coolidge is about ready to fire the poor bastard, he continued. Who would have thought the Attorney General would be their fall guy? Not shocked about the Ohio gang scandals themselves, I asked. He laughed heartily. Sister politicians is all scandal. Presidential politics even more. You think Harding would have been elected without some greased palms? Everyone gets rich is in the know. We just gotta hope they fill their coffers while not killing the rest of us. Yeah. Guess the cronies don't expect Harding to die so quickly, the driver nodded. Not enough time to cover up. Of course, the politicians themselves are just demagogues. The real leaders are the bosses, enriching themselves while controlling their public puppets. We pulled to my destination. Anyhow, said the driver, here we are. I thanked him and left the taxicab. I arrived again at the old warehouse, turned speakeasy, its wooden sign still barely holding the frame of the building. I rapped my knuckles on the same metal door. Instead of the usual dark eyes, the door swung open to reveal Fred Grant. He let out a PC. Good seeing ya, with more whiskey on his breath than a fire breather. He stumbled down the next few steps as I caught his limp body. All loose ends tied up, he said, winking at me while he tried to stand still. Through the doorman in the back of the wagon, he continued. He says nobody came in or out the upstairs billiards hall last night. A hiccup interrupted Grant's thought. You know, I believe him, but the Bulls need somebody to work on, and putting Welt on this goon will make the afternoon go faster. He again tried to stand upright. Failing at that, he continued to his police car, got behind the wheel, let the sirens loose, and drove the machine around the corner. He should not be driving. I continued up the stairs to find a similar scene as the day before, only Tiny Paul had been replaced by a younger woman, idly playing with a deck of cards scattered across the billiards table. Balls were gone from the billiards table. In their place were some betting chips and cards strewn across the table. I counted 5 aces, 2 aces of hearts. I could see the tears welled up in the girl's eyes. I approached the young woman and looked her up and down. I studied her clothes. She wore an olive scarf tied to her head. Her dress was a darker green with long tassels that shimmered yellow, even in the dim light of the billionaire hall. It was cut above the knee, indicating that she was likely a performer with the band. Who are you? She said in a clear, strong voice. I'm Ella Smith. I work nights as a backing singer. She added in a more delicate tone. But, well, last night I had a bit too much of the cider. The whole band was here, playing a long game of poker and singing after work. I wondered if she had been in the billiards room since the previous evening. Perhaps she didn't want to go and talk about her night. It might embarrass a young woman. But I had to know the story. And you're still here? I asked her. I came to this morning, a blush interrupted her before she continued her thought. I was laying on the pool table when I heard a cop banging on the metal door. I asked how much she had to drink. That made her hot. Listen, miss, I don't know who you are, but don't go around asking me things like that. I'm not judging you. Lady should drink as much as she likes, and she can do what she pleases after. And since when are flappers ladies? She laughed. Anyhow, what is it that you want? If she'd been inside the tiny spoon the entire night, I concluded that she might have had information about Green. I knew I had to pump her for leads. Do you have any means to commit the murder? Do you know anybody who had a gun that could have killed Green? She looked puzzled. I explained myself. Miss, I'm not a private detective looking into the matter. I'm just a private detective looking into the matter. I need to follow up with everyone. She looked surprised when I said private detective, but she didn't comment on it further. She chuckled at my question. I don't know if you know this, but, well, the place is a type of gangster hideout. No one in the band has shooters, of course, but it's just about everybody else in the building is carrying something. That was no help in narrowing my list of suspects, but I nodded in understanding. You don't carry a gun yourself, I asked? She shook her head. No, ma'am, no shooters in the band. She seemed adamant on that point. Can't really argue against that. Green was killed around midnight, I told her. Do you remember anything from them? She turned red in an instant. Midnight was the time I sang all by myself to the crowd up here. The chunky chap. Is that who you want me to raid? Green was killed around midnight, I told her. Do you remember anything from then? She turned red in an instant. Midnight was the time I sang all by myself to the crowd. Oh yeah, but she wasn't around to sing it, so I did it alone. Well, Fanny wasn't around, I asked? Well, the doorman says nobody from the billiards room left the joint. Ella shrugged. Maybe she was in the toilets. I didn't go looking for her. Look, I never get to sing lead. They don't like us Chinese girls doing that, so I took my chance. How could I turn it down, she asked. Well, anyhow, after that song is pretty much when I really downed some gin. I didn't like it, but they said it was good for me, and it was riding high, with everyone watching. I don't remember much after that. I thanked her for the tip. So, you claim you were here at midnight, I asked. That's right, she said. Other people would have seen her sing, so... I need to prove the motive. This is the last one I'm going to ask about. Do you know why anybody would have a reason to kill Connor Green? I put to her. No, I'm not sure. I read Connor came around here on the regular a few years back. That's how he and Fanny met. That was before my time. I never saw him much. Is there anything else that I really want to ask her about before I leave here? She was holding back tears. Most of them have guns. Fanny wasn't in the pool hall. Smith is Chinese. Black hand letter is fake. According to the doorman, nobody had come in or out of the billiards hall. Is that true? As I told you, I was holed up here the entire night singing to the boys. Had known my name, only gives friends haircuts. Mr. Green's gray coat, arrival at Southern Coffee, following her husband. Got a threatening letter. Anything in evidence? Tiny Paul was not at the tin spoon. There are 2 aces. What's up with the 2 aces? Those cards you're fiddling with, I said. Are they the same ones the boys were playing with last night? She said they were. Alright. Ask about the ashtray. Ask about this. She said, I don't know anything about that. I nodded and asked about something else. Well, whatever. I'll leave her alone. I feel like I'm about done. That's probably going to be it for me here. I'm going to take a break. Do something else. I really appreciate everybody who came and joined. I'm going to go find somebody real quick that we can send you over to with a raid. I do see that there is Chunky Chap, but if I have one of my buds streaming as well, then I might pop him over, but I don't see anybody. Who's this Chunky Chap fellow anyway? What's he doing? VR chat with a friend? Well, sure, I'll raid him. Why not? So I need to copy that shit and then do one of these. I think that's how you do it. Let's see how this works. Maybe I have to do it and like end the stream in a different way. I'm very new to this. Here. Let's see. So, we're here, we're transitioning. How do I do this? Chat settings? How do I raid? I'm gonna Google this. How do I raid? Oh, it's a slash raid. God damn it. There we go. Alright, enjoy the raid, everyone. Hope you had a good stream. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.